Well, good afternoon, LinkedIn Live audience and our webinar audience. We're having our monthly webinar series. And today I got my esteemed guest and colleague, Aasim Shabbaz, and he and I are going to talk about how do you find transformational talent at scale? You know, every organization, or not every organization, but a lot of organizations these days are going through various types of transformations, digital transformations, agile transformations, and oftentimes we're trying to find the right people to put in place because we're having different role changes, different expectations, and a lot of churn in our organization. So retention becomes an issue. A lot of different things pop up. So how do we retain and find that transformational talent to make these big initiatives within our organizations succeed? All right. So without further ado, we'll kind of get into the our topics here. And Aasim, would you like to kind of introduce yourself and IXC?
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I appreciate the great introduction. I'm Aasim Shabbaz from IXC, and I've been working and collaborating with the I4 group for some time, actually being trained and supported and developed and mentored by Charles, and being able to work within this space. We have worked with the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. We have trained and developed thousands of people around the world, working in collaboration with and independently, and being able to watch this evolution of the learning that we have. So we at I4 are taking a new approach as we begin with transformation, and as we work with IXC in collaboration collectively, we are coming together to produce a better quality of what we do and how we do it. And so we are experienced, we're global, we transfer knowledge. We actually have our own incubator where we are working with ideas on digital transformation, working with SAFE as SAFE Goal partners in the transformation space, and being able to bring that learning from our clients and past experience to you. So just want to say thank you.
All right. Thanks, Aasim, for that introduction. And then myself, founder and principal of the I4 group, been doing SAFE transformations and agile transformations as a whole for about the last 12 years or so. One of the things we do at the I4 group is we're, experienced consultants and trainers. Obviously, we've been doing that for a while, but also too, a new area that we're specializing in is cybersecurity, and the Cyber Agility Academy was open specifically for that, which is a good resource for data science, cybersecurity, quality assurance training, along with agile training as well. All right, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started and with our topic. And Aasim and I are the panel, and we're going to kind of bounce back and forth and just kind of have an informal conversation about this topic around finding transformational talent at scale. As I mentioned, a lot of organizations are going through transformation, and a big challenge is how do we maintain the existing talent or retrain the existing talent and retain. We want to have good, we don't want to lose folks within our transformation because it's too disruptive, or they're not feeling that it's a good environment to stay in. So a lot of good, oops, I'm going the wrong direction, apologies here. A lot of good things to talk about here. So one of the first questions that we want to cover is, what are some of the strategies an organization might take to move team members from the traditional roles in the transformation and into the new roles of the transformation? So just some experience that I've seen within big organizational transformations are that new roles are being called out, that didn't exist before, especially, talk about an agile transformation, the role of like a scrum master, for example. You might have had traditionally, may have had similar roles like a project manager or a program manager in place, but you never had this role that took on similar skill sets. There are some overlapping areas of specialty that a scrum master might have in common with a project manager, but then there are new aspects like coaching, team empowerment, being a collaborator, a good facilitator, things that may have not been a traditional skill set that a traditional project manager has had. So we then try to transform these people and these roles into these new roles as like a project manager to a scrum master. Sometimes we have challenges. So I don't know, Awesome. What have you seen as some of the strategies to try to overcome this from your experience that you've seen?
I've seen a variety, Charles, like you said, just trying to work with what we have in-house and develop them for these roles. It takes a transformation, not only of the organization and this business model and this organizational structure, but the individuals within it. And some of the approaches that I've seen that have been most effective have been this notion of marketing and finding those amongst the guiding coalition who want the transformation and are in those spaces and are seeking out and want to step up. The early adopters, per se. Sometimes that may be through a pilot. If they're doing a pilot within the org, if it's a multinational, maybe running several pilots to get that feedback, but to start to message the vision so people can start to level up and do their own and incite that curiosity of what's to come, and then work to slowly integrate them into the new system by experience, not just a training and then throwing them out, but a training with experience and feedback loops the same way you would, and let them know that the training is ongoing. Part of the pressure is not knowing, the in-flight work and not knowing. A lot of people have a lot of pressure. I'm new to this. I've been competent in this other role for the last 15 years to help build this great company. And now all of a sudden I need to learn to become a product manager. And what is that? And I think that's the challenges of articulating that. So I've seen a lot of companies using change management, using the marketing prowess within the company to communicate, this is what we need you for. Who wants to volunteer? Who wants to step up and begin to cultivate that?
Yeah, those are some good points. Just to add to that too, some of the things that I think you need to try to tackle along with this is partnering up with your change management or HR department on what might be some impacts of role changes, and making that clear and communicating that out clear, because some people may think that, well, hey, maybe I get a pay grade increase, or you're calling me a product manager now, and that manager tag at the end of my name might signify something. So we need to kind of have those communication channels clear from an organizational standpoint on what these things mean, and really set the expectations and the boundaries. One thing that is actually interesting I've seen recently that is always a good thing to do. The spirit of agile, right, is to experiment and learn. And you can always communicate out, this is a pilot. We're not locking ourselves into a certain way of working right now. We're trying to experiment a little bit, and we're going to evolve. And maybe next year we're going to really start to roll out new organizational HR type roles and things of that nature. So that's maybe another strategy on how to communicate those changes that you're trying to make. And then one last point too, Aasim and I are coaches. I have to throw this in there, is that a good coach can always be a model or an exemplar and kind of help mentor and guide some of these roles as they're doing the work. We can, I've been myself a scrum master or a product owner before, and or an RTE, and played that role and as an exemplar for others to follow. So that's another couple good strategies on that.
That's a good point. And to close it out, it is bridging that gap of setting the right expectations. Even though we say it and we hear leaders say this is a pilot, people approach it as if it's the real deal. And they often will internalize that, that disconnect, or you hear other leaders within the org who may not have gotten that message bristle at the notion of a manager being behind a title. And so the clarity and the reinforcement of that communication and having clear workflows, if you can, to kind of signify this is the role and this is what we do. As transformation stewards, that we've been able to do that and model the behavior, because we're not within the ecosystem often, and to bring those new ideas and new ways of working to help support that. So it's the balance of the clarity and then being able to message that early and often and consistently reinforce that, along with, as Charles mentioned, the coaches who can come in and present a model, help align expectations and help coach to a future state, and so that the organization is stronger than when we came in. And that's the ideal space, is to enable the organization, its people, its capacity, that great talent that they have, to be able to step up to the next levels beyond where they start.
All right. Good discussion there on that. All right. Here's something too that a lot of organizations seem to struggle with, or may or may not struggle with, but there's a concern about maybe having too much contracted out workforce. For example, give you an extreme example, like government work typically is almost exclusively contracted out, versus a lot of organizations that are trying to create that good culture of having the employee that works there, and then you're creating a good employee culture. There's a balance there too. So a lot of organizations are kind of maybe in the middle or on one end or the other. So contracted workforce versus employee-based workforce, how might this balance be different under a transformation? You think about things that, again, you're going through a change, and a lot of people at the existing company may not even have a clue about what this change is all about. Or it might be, from a leadership standpoint, you understand you do have an aging set of folks that you're in a completely new business model, you're in a completely new way of working, that this transformation might be, it is what it is. It's actually going to end up replacing a lot of people, are going to get replaced by a lot of new blood in the company. So there's a lot of if and ands that kind of go into this. Aasim, what do you think about this? Have you seen anything interesting in this space about balance between contracting and employees? And what do you think in terms of transformation, how that plays a role in that balance?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's what I've witnessed is that some companies get it right, and it's more of a science and an art that they have a culture that looks at the contractor, who often will come in willing to do what it takes to lift the company. That's their focus. They're not tied to the political dynamics or the movement within the company, though they may be impacted by it. But they come in, they're looking at that balance. Okay, what's my mandate? You want me to model? How can I support? And with the right type of contractor, they come in looking to support and enable success. And that's really important. And when the leadership, so there was an initiative that we did for a multinational company in automotive finance space, and they trained and equipped their contractors just like they did everybody else. And they saw them as contributors, and they actually funded the investment. We had that just last year in another initiative where they're actually a team out of Ukraine before the war started was there and getting trained and supporting the initiative and adjusting their schedules and seeing themselves as a part of the organizational success or that value stream success. Because of that value stream, it doesn't matter where they are. And so I've seen them make sure that they're very intentional about that. And then they even were able to adapt because of the agility that they were adopting. They were even to adapt that capacity and let those teams know, let us know when you come back on. So I've seen it both ends, and that's on the success side, and having them integrated and then having them scale down as the organization is scaling up, as it becomes more, and sometimes they even hire more, but as it becomes, I would say, more enabled to manage the transformation on its own and continue to evolve it, you continue to see that legacy starts to fade and that new growth starts to take off. So those are the good aspects. I've also seen it mismanaged because of the contract law and HR and how you want to distinguish them. And there's a culture where the contractor is seen as the adversary, as if they're the one bringing the change, as if they're the one leading the transformation. And that can go really wrong because it creates an us versus them, and you don't really get the value out of the human beings that you bring into the table and their creative genius that can help empower your company for the next 6 to 9 months to 2 years if you need them to. Your thoughts on that, Chuck?
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question on that, because one of the things that I've seen, and we know too, as change agents, that just telling, like voluntold type of way of working, that a contractor or a consultant can come in and say, well, hey, this is how you do it. But then the organization doesn't seem to take ownership of the change. That it was kind of artificially grafted and brought in from outside. It wasn't their change. How do you see that? Because ultimately the organization, the company, has to own it, and it needs to be their DNA on how this thing works. And if it's brought from the outside, it sometimes seems artificial. Then you can't create that good culture around that change. You observed that, or you got any ideas on that one?
Yeah, I've observed. That's why we brought you in, is to say these things because we can't say it, right? That is often how you get positioned. Anyone who's been in this space sometimes you even find internally you get promoted because you're new and you come in and like, well, you're the new person. You can speak these truths. We can't speak these truths. And
Yeah.
in all fairness, it is difficult to have fierce conversation within organizations. And the consultant, the coach, from a transformation standpoint, should come in attuned and learning the culture, but not trying to pull heroics as if they own the transformation. And that's one of the reasons why we started to look at saying we're stewards of the transformation. This is yours, and this is a collaborative ownership. And stop giving solutions and start working in collaboration with and eliciting solutions from the team that they can own. We had this syndrome, we used to call it, the consultant bucks. Well, so and so said, when really what you're looking at is what's best for the company. Well, SAFE says, well, what's best for the company? What principles are you owning? Because you have to stand behind it. When you hear that language, they're not owning it. They haven't internalized. Say, hey, my research has indicated this. Let's experiment. And you want to hear that we and not the external references so much as if, and sometimes you'll hear this, well, you're the expert. And it's like, actually, you're the expert in your environment. I'm the coach here to help enable your expertise to achieve your goals. And that's the role that you really want to play.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that word, that expert comment always kind of rubs me the wrong way. I always like to clarify, I'm not the industry, and the things are changing so fast, and the nuances, I have a lot of information, but I don't, I might be able to help you, but just don't be quick to call me the expert. Like it's said and done with me. That's not.
Yeah, that's not it.
Yeah,
that's not it. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a look at another one of the questions that we got here pulled up. Okay. So next question is, what are some of the successful models that you've seen for training and mentoring and coaching that enable an organization's workforce to transform? So we know, from an industry definition standpoint that these are three different areas of concern: training, obviously, coaching. I'll throw in another one: consulting and mentoring. There's four different aspects. And as a coach, as a transformation coach, we come in and maybe touch on all of those at different times. So we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of what works and what doesn't work, especially from the standpoint of how an organization may set up a coaching group to support the transformation, and even where that coaching group sits. I've seen the coaching group maybe sit just within the IT space, or it sits in an independent space, like maybe from a more evolved organization might have its own transformation group, and not necessarily that the transformation or the coaching group sits within a particular business unit or a functional unit within the organization. But that plays a big part in how effective that coaching group can be in instituting all these four areas of training, mentoring, coaching, and consulting. So I don't know, Aasim, what are your thoughts just kind of on that whole area of those things: coaching, training, and mentoring, and the success models that can be enabled there?
I think, as you spoke to it, that there's a variety. I think sometimes you consistently have to set the right message that training does not equal competence. And a lot of the times that's where we miss it. Because the transformation, the business still has its business priorities. It still has its goals and objectives and financial outcomes. And sometimes the transformation has a fixed date, which is something that we don't want to see, but it has a fixed date. And so people focus on that date and they're trying to drive as much through as they can. And when that starts to happen, there's a belief, unintentionally, I do believe, that the training somehow equals competence, that they took a 2-3 day training on a skill set and a new way of working for which they haven't encountered before, and that transforms their work, and suddenly they got it. And what I've seen from organizations that get that is that they start coaching them before the training into the role so they can have some experience. in the role so that the training has more of a significance on the job learning, and they are mentored and coached for either 1 to 2 PIs after that. I've also seen a pattern where we coach the leaders first so they can set the right expectations around how to mentor and support, how to be supportive of new ways of learning, which in our space is fail fast, right? Get fast feedback loops. Understand that all data coming in right now is not good data because it's been historical. It's not, there's no true historical context, and start to calibrate their expectations so they can mentor and support. And those are two strategies I've seen that work consistently. And then enable from a community of practice a continual evolution of that learning mechanism through the POs or through the roles. Let me just say the roles, because they can cut across from the C-suite all the way down to the teams, where they can begin now to transfer ownership to the organization, and they come up with those topics that continue to allow them to evolve in their space. So I see that you have to have a strategy around that. You need a plan and a roadmap so people know that I'm not just being trained and then being left out there as if I'm suddenly supposed to be an expert. There's that word again. At my job, I have competence, but that there's a path for me to continue to engage a coach, continue to work with more mature people in the space to get better at what I want to be the best at. Yeah.
That's some good nuggets there. Thanks for sharing that. You actually made me remember one of our colleagues. Throw his name out there, Craig DeChantel. He always used to remind me that you train dogs, but you educate humans.
Yeah.
that was one thing that always stuck with me, and it's true because so when education is something that needs to have kind of an institutionalized way of residing in the organization, and so training a lot of times it's its own department. Training doesn't fall under business or IT. Training usually falls under the human resource development aspect. So in a way that is a key component there. Another thing that came to me as you were talking, and I did a little research in this area, which is knowledge management. The area in the body, the study of knowledge management as a body of knowledge or as an area of study is in a lot of organizations is its own entity as well. It's its own organization. And so there's an organizational unit, if you will, that's responsible for retaining and disseminating the knowledge about what's important within the organization. It's an asset. Knowledge is an asset that the company values. And transformation knowledge is an asset on how we move forward within the transformation. And so it shouldn't necessarily reside with one group or another to have its priorities be played out about what's important for a particular vertical within an organization. It is something that's important for the entire organization. And so for transformation to happen effectively, you need to train, mentor, coach, and oftentimes consult that. Need to think about the knowledge that's associated with that being an asset. And that asset needs to kind of be prioritized across the board, not just within one particular vertical within the organization. So just something to kind of wrap your head around.
You said that, and it brings me to some examples, Charles, that will happen. You can educate the workforce and give them, quote, the skills, the tools to do the job. And yet don't change the expectations around them. You still measure them the same way. They still come in, have to do the same reports, and they just learn. And when we run into this, and they just learned and are being coached to a new way of working, and yet it didn't go beyond that siloed group. And so everyone that they're running around trying to do reports now and trying to get all this information together that has nothing to do with creating the business value that they've been developed on, that the investment in their future has been to enable them to do. And they're still challenged with old ways of metrics. I think you have to have a strategy to make sure you transform that top and make sure that the education is there and that the expectations and the alignment of the systems to actually harness what they're creating and what they're developing. And so that way you got that continuity across. You need that continuity across the ecosystems.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense there. All right, let's go on to our next topic here. What measures have you used in the past that you've seen successfully used to gauge how prepared or ready your workforce was for to operate within the transformation? So Often I think you pointed out early, Aasim, about how, maybe it's just not how many people have been trained. That sometimes that is, that we've seen that though a lot. I mean, it is one data point, you would say, that people that have gone through the training class, it is some type of calibration, but we, oftentimes we see that they weren't ready, or what was the expectation to come out of that. And that's why we've actually a lot of times seen that we've experienced practically that we would go, we might give the training, but then there'll be a series of workshops that they must go through afterwards to kind of make sure that they're prepared to hit the ground running. But how do you measure that? I know a lot of enterprise agile PMOs and agile transformation offices, that is an expectation for their their leadership and their executives, that they want to see measures. They need to see these measures to give them confidence that we're moving in the right direction. And so, what are your thoughts on that, Aasim, around these measures, and from an agile, PMO office or agile transformation office, what do we do with these measures? How do we communicate the readiness to the rest of the organization that the transformation is ready to proceed, or we're ready to get started, or even sometimes the health of where the transformation is at any particular time?
There's a science and an art to this, I think, because the measures don't always provide, looking at the data alone doesn't always tell you what is actually happening and what the readiness state is. And I think that that's over dependence on data points too early is something that we have to really coach the mindset readiness of leadership and of those who are actually doing the work of a value stream that the art lives in, that they understand that the PMO understands, wait, this is a reset. We need to reestablish the baseline at zero, as if we're entrepreneurial again, and now measure our capacity, our velocity. Let's look at quality metrics that we predefine and see where we're going with that. One, I believe that it takes from experience at least 2 PIs where you start to feel like your team is competent. You only do a PI once every 8 to 10 weeks, roughly, unless you're on a quarterly. And that's your baseline. I've seen some people come in and praise it. And you start to measure the execution. We start looking at our Scrum Masters. We start looking at the value stream and how well is it adapting and calibrating, and looking at those predefined metrics that we can look at. If we're looking at mindset, I know that you and I have been doing some R&D on some tools that can help assess leadership and help look at the value that they have going in, and start measuring the mindset that goes in as they're ready to help to be able to adapt. But a large part of this is experience while doing. You can't get enough, quote, requirements down and eat enough books and watch enough videos and go through enough trainings to feel like, you're competent at this. There's the point when you have to actually start to do the work, grapple with the uncertainty and the not knowing, and learning on the job, and adapting and providing feedback at those intervals that are early and often, so the system can begin to calibrate. And once they start to see that, once they start to look at the system as calibrating, it's like a hockey stick approach at first. We say, you know what, it's going to take a dip. And once it hits this, this short, and we say a very short decline in productivity, you're going to start to see a consistent ascent. So you want to make sure that the organization is on their retros, that they're creating those feedback loops, that they value feedback and learning to improve the system, not just the data and metrics without context, which can have you chasing a red herring of sorts and never get to the bottom of it. Your thoughts on that? Because I know you've seen a lot out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're actually making me think about a lot of different things. But one little philosophical saying came up and started tying this into what you were talking about. It's like, the show and prove. You can talk all you want, you can say you got in your head all you want, but what do you actually do? Or there's one thing, one of the philosophical quotes that I've heard before is like, your habits about your thinking, and then your habits about your speaking is one thing, but then the habits about what you actually do, that becomes like your destiny. That's actually what you actually get accomplished. And yeah. So to what I was hearing, what you were saying is that the real true measure is, what are they doing? Yeah. We can run them through training. We can, even the assessments we were talking about, we have an R&D to test the leadership mindset. Having what's in your mind is good too, because that kind of confirms that you got the right thought patterns happening. But what is actually happening on the ground? did we actually make it come to life somehow on the ground? And that actually, is probably the best indicator. And to your point, and that's why we say one of the things that we always look for as a pilot, the best pilot test case is the teams that are already sprinting in an agile transformation space. Which teams are already sprinting? They're already, having daily stand-ups. They're already doing planning to a certain level. And we always want to start there because they usually give us the most bang for the buck in terms of testing out our transformation initiatives on how we're moving forward. So having a little bit of historical data on some of these ready criteria actually being implemented is always usually your best example. So yeah, that's why I got to have a lab. That's why I got to have some teams in the pilot phase doing things. And that way they're experimenting, and you got some things already started. You can't expect to hit the ground running from zero. You have to have this, you have these laboratory experiments ongoing. And we call that, in terms of our jumping up to kind of portfolio management, these are these Horizon 3 areas of investment that we should be making, that everything shouldn't just be coming up and hitting us in the face, and we're reacting to market trends and market rhythms. We're actually proactive, and we got some things in the lab that we're working on, whether it be agile teams, DevOps teams, or BDD, whatever the case may be, that we're trying to get this transformation kicked off with, that we've been working on it for a while. We got some historical data to prove it out. So yeah, I like that. Cool. That's that. Let's go on to the next one. Let's go. This one here. Let's check out this question. Based on our discussion of the questions we went over so far, so we're kind of wrapping up our discussion here. What are some of the biggest takeaways that you could give to a leader or a transformation coach that's in their job right now that might be struggling to, get their organization, they're trying to get some traction with their workforce. And, so what are some takeaways, Aasim, that you think are some good takeaways for the audience here on what we talked about?
I think my belief when I approach the work and when I work with coaches, when we work with organizations, is as a coach, as a transformation steward, you can't lose belief in what is possible. You have to have a healthy imagination of what is possible, and a healthy way of communicating what is possible, a healthy way of responding to challenges, and as a friend of mine says, opportunity-enriched environment. And that's the reason why most of us are there. We're there to help enable and to help the organization realize its full potential and to be a part of that journey. I call it the great adventure because it can go amazingly well, it can go horribly wrong, and you shouldn't forget that. And every day that we touch people, we help transform their lives. The nuggets that we bring from our collective experience to help move the needle forward, it's really them doing the work and us collectively supporting them. Do not forget the mindset that we as coaches bring to the work. That they are valued, that there's an opportunity here, and let's reframe it from us being the heroes to us being able to support that. So when you think about that, the vision is really important. But you said it earlier, but you can't state the vision and your walk is going in a divergent path. That we're able to own it, and we're stating it, and we're showing them in a roadmap how we're supporting the work that's being done. And we lift up the wins, and we highlight the learning opportunities, and we act on the learning opportunities. A coach cannot shy away from acting on a learning opportunity, and nor should those who have to own the work, because otherwise we're going to repeat the same cycle. So energize them with the vision, walk the talk, show them the roadmap so they can see where we're trying to go and they can provide input. If we're saying we're trying to head to sunny California and we're going up to Alberta in the wintertime, then and the signs indicate that, then we shouldn't be in denial about the science and the data that we're getting back from our teams. We should be able to look and respond to it. It shouldn't be pressed forward in the wrong direction. So honor the feedback, honor your people, and honor the troops there and inspire them. Every day come in and inspire them. You have goals, you have objectives, you have PR objectives, you have scrum masters who are working from iteration to iteration and fast feedback loops, and leadership has to be open to that as well. that this is a great opportunity for us to transform and impact the organization for the next 10 years. So that's how I try to position it and wake up to it every day.
All right, cool. I'll add a little bit to that as well. So to your point about the, I got more than just one takeaway.
That's
But
good.
yeah, more than one take. So I will give a little bit more than one takeaway too. So as takeaways, I think, the things that we've seen, and you spoke to it too, Aasim, is just the clarity from a leadership standpoint about where we're trying to go. And that's crucial, just that vision and purpose about where we're trying to go, because ultimately those within the organization, especially existing employees, if they can't see a career path that fits them, based on what's happening, they're seeing a lot of changes happening, but there's no real clear message from leadership that we're going down this path, everybody's going to be okay, and I'm going to actually I'm going to benefit by being here, and this is actually tying into my overall career goals and journey that I'm planning on being on. Then yeah, I feel good about what's happening here, versus the opposite, where people don't hear much of anything and they expect the worst, and so they end up leaving, and you start developing a culture that's very secretive, and there's just not a lot of, it's not very transparent, there's not a lot you could do in that situation but leave potentially. That's what most people do when there's that type of leadership going on. It's not very clear for the entire organization. Once that message is in place and it's clear, to support that, having the training programs going, having the coaching support that you need. Ideally, the coaching support is aligned in a very neutral space within the organization that is designed to benefit the entire organization and not really just prioritize for one part of the organization. And that coaching organization is very supportive of the COPs, communities of practices within the organization, as well as the concept of like dojos, coding dojos from a technical standpoint. But the coaching organization is very supportive of all these learning forums and the ongoing training that's needed. One thing that we didn't touch on, this is from like a leadership standpoint about retaining your organizational talent, as well as attracting new organizational talent, is as a leader, it might, it's a good opportunity for you to go out and then check on the local Agile community meetups to see what's happening in those meetups and things of that nature, because you'll hear a lot of new ideas, as well as you'll, introduce yourself to a lot of other Agilists in the community that might share some good tidbits with you as well about what's going on in the Agile community and some of the trends that other organizations are taking that might benefit your organization. The community involvement aspect of it as a whole. And Aasim, I remember, we were a part of the initiative here with Capital One, where we help support an Agile conference get launched in the Dallas area. And that's not an idea just unique to Capital One, but Toyota has done similar things. I know AT&T has done, a lot of companies do this, but they may sponsor an Agile conference where you attract a lot of the local attention about, hey, this is an Agile company, I might want to work here. They seem to have a great culture. They got good facilities. They're modernized. I met a lot of good employees at the conference. I might want to go there. I might be a coach. I might be an Agilist, and I might want to work for that company now that they put on a conference for the community. And so it's a very it's advertising your commitment to Agile as a industry way of working, and it's something that you might want to take advantage of. And then lastly too is just show up at job fairs. If you're a company and you're recruiting at college campuses, make that one of your calling cards, is that you're invested in the Agile way of working. You're cutting edge, and this is an environment that would be attractive to new college hires and those that are looking to get into this field. Is another good takeaway maybe for you leaders that might want to support the Agile retention. So any comment, you got any feedback on that? Aasim, just on some of those things?
Yeah, I think that those are all great points, and they have to be done holistically, collectively, and as a strategy. They're not one-offs, and you have to, the learning aspect in community engagement, internally and both externally, and advancing the leadership, and knowing that everyone from your developer and Q&A now has a leadership role because everyone has a vested interest in assisting and supporting and evolving the transformation. That's number one, like you said, and that resonated really well with me. Part of that, and when you said it, is decision making. A lot of the organizations, when they move into agile and they start to move to agility at scale, with whether it's a safe implementation or you're customizing it, we've done them all. You start to learn that people don't know how to make the decisions that they're being asked to make. Like, what's my scope of the problem I'm trying to solve? Where do I fit in this space? Because it has been decentralized and they are empowered. And we like to say that, but a lot of times they don't know what that means to them, though. So does that mean I'm the one to blame? And so when you come out of this, you want to learn that you're the one to learn and evolve, and we trust you. And that's the opportunity, like you said, to open up to more talent who comes in, also to enable that talent within to be able to struggle with making those key decisions, but have that support in place or develop the support as they grow to be able to support that. Because the future is always brighter than the present when you live it in the space of fast feedback loops and you take that feedback serious. So yeah, I agree. There's that engaged enough community. I know we do roundtables. I know that we've supported and done conferences, and just to watch the energy and the people that you meet that become part of a learning community, especially when it comes to leaders who can get siloed, who sometimes, because of the speed of change in their own domain, they're limited sometimes to the dashboard, that approach of getting information, when sometimes you do have to get out and connect and meet with your peers and find out what is working. We have enough experience behind us now where we can have lessons learned for what is working and adapt to change. So thank you.
All right. So that takes us right to the end of our conversation. Now, at this point in time, we're going to open it up to any questions that might come in, or anybody that's on the live session or in LinkedIn Live that has any questions around what we just covered. So we'll pause here for a second to see if we have any questions. Any questions for our panelists? Well, while we're waiting on any questions to come in, Aasim, let's kind of wrap up too, just to talk about maybe some of the upcoming opportunities with IACC, and as being a Safe Goal training partner. I know there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of other meetups and things of that nature coming up, or classes that might be being offered to the community. You got any news to share on that?
Yeah, I know that, Charles, as we've been working and collaborating on this, that we have seen a shift in the market with, OKRs and looking at the LPM, the lean portfolio management. So we've been getting a lot of feedback. There's from dialogues, roundtables, and discussions and trainings coming up. So we're putting those out there for 2023, and also with our meetups and roundtables in the Dallas, Houston, and Austin area that we have already kicked off starting last month in Dallas. And then moving to a meetup this winter. Well, hopefully it's still warm, but this winter, I think we sit around the week of the 15th. So there's a lot of opportunities there. We're always looking to develop. So we have a talent cultivation pipeline strategy where we work with emerging Scrum Masters, emerging POs and PMs to develop their skills and want to take it to the next level in support of training that they may have had in certifications, along with a community of practice. So that is an ongoing initiative that we have internally. So if you're out there and you're like, hey, I got the cert, I have some experience, but how do I take it to the next level beyond the training? We're always looking for that. And then finally, we're a home for SPC development. We do a lot of coaching, a lot of elevating skills and focusing on the future arc of the curve to help promote our SPCs that we have to be able to enable them to be successful with us and beyond, but always to the benefit of the client, the customer. So that's what we have going on, and we have a bright pipeline for 2023 and a roadmap that we can't wait to reveal in December. So thank you.
All right, thanks. I'm seeing a couple. All right. I'm just checking the LinkedIn Live comments. I'm not seeing anything come in yet.
All right.
All right, if there's no other comments, yeah, if anybody's on LinkedIn Live, you got any comments or questions, please chime in. I'll check our webinar chat here as well. But yeah, I'll just kind of second, get ready to close this out then. Aasim, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining and having this conversation. And we talked about possibly having these more frequently too on other topics as well. And, again, we even appreciate you community members joining in. And again, if you guys got questions or you guys want to hit us up, we're on LinkedIn. You got both of our profiles on here. We love to take questions around these topics around agile transformation. So be on the lookout. Those that did attend, you'll be getting, you'll get a thank you, as well as kind of keeping you in a loop of our further lunchtime conversations going forward. So with that said, I still don't see any questions come in. Again, thank you so much, Aasim, for your time today, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And then thank you, LinkedIn Live community, as well as our webinar community. And we'll see you guys next time. You guys have a great rest of your afternoon.
All right. Thank you all.
Cheers.